So a while back, one of my favorite YouTubers, Wadzee, transformed his ocean monument into a jungle biome-inspired monument. But before doing so, he actually held a little poll to see which biome his viewers would want him to transform his ocean monument into.
You guys actually chose mushroom biome. Also, can we just talk about why over 50% of you voted for a mushroom biome? Like, I have my stupid excuse, but just look at how boring this is. Why did you vote for this?
Well, Wadzee, I was in the 57%, and I'm gonna show you exactly why I voted for the mushroom biome by transforming an ocean monument of my own into the monument I had in mind when I voted. Anyways, if you wanna see me transform this boring piece of ocean into something quite cool, if I do say so myself, then keep on watching. Alright, so the first thing I did was of course locate an ocean monument and start building the enormous circle around it. This circle was like 100 blocks in diameter, and since I don't have World Edit installed on my computer, I just use Minecraft's own built-in commands to clone the circle all the way down to the ocean floor. Then I had to drain out the entire circle, and at first I thought it would be an amazing idea to fill the whole thing with sand, but I quickly realized that this was simply not true. First of all, it would be a huge pain to get rid of all the sand afterwards, and also every block that had kelp or seagrass on it, the sand would just break and create an enormous amount of entities that I had to get rid of constantly. Instead, I figured out to just use the fill command to replace all the water and also the sand that I had just spawned in with just air. Then I used sponges to get rid of all the kelp and seagrass, which kept making new water source blocks, and it kept making me redo the fill command over and over. So if you want to take on a project like this where you have to clear out a lot of water, I'd recommend either looking up a smarter way to do it or get rid of the kelp first and don't use sand, just don't use sand. But honestly, it does look pretty satisfying when you see all the water just disappear and leave the empty ocean floor exposed to the sky above. Next thing I had to do was of course replace all the gravel with mycelium, and I did this with the same commands that I used before, just the replace command, the fill command. And in some places where a huge ravine was cutting through the ocean floor, I had to manually fill it in and just make the holes look sort of nice, covered up. And here I am trying to terraform this horrible square cliff that was generated with the ocean monument, and I think I made it look fairly natural. It's still a bit ugly, but not as jarring as before. Then I just continued all around the monument, trying to make it look as nice as possible, and even though you can't tell in these clips, the ravine actually went diagonally under the monument itself, but that part I decided to leave as it was, and then I would fill it in later with some mushrooms and make it look like they were growing out from the water. So I finished with all the mycelium and started work on the first custom mushroom. At this point, the monument does look kinda dull with all the purple-gray mycelium, so I spruced it up by adding a little bit of sporadic splotches of crimson nylium around the mushroom. Then I just added some smaller mushrooms, experimenting a little bit with how they look, but I end up changing it quite a lot. Here you see me build the first custom brown mushroom, and you see me go around the bottom a lot. That's because the mushrooms blocks are 6-sided by default, but if you place 2 of them beside each other and break one, it will give the other the texture of the inside of a mushroom on that side where you broke one. And I did this to every mushroom in the beginning, but somewhere along the way, I think halfway through, I forgot about it, so all the mushrooms are kind of inconsistent. Anyways, I decided to incorporate some light sources as decorations, and I've got the lanterns hanging from the mushrooms, and I made some vines along the ground with shroom lights inside to sort of light up and make some nice ambience. I did build with due daylight cycle turned false, so if you see the game flash between midnight and noon, that's just me checking how it looks at night when the light is actually visible. Then I started adding this wall of mixed stone to hide the seam between the glass and the ocean floor, and while I was building this, I was actually listening to Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. So every time I look at this wall, I just see the angry face of Professor Snape and his greasy hair in my mind, so that's super nice. Anyways, you just saw how I was adding further detail to some of the smaller mushrooms and making them look a little bit more interesting and unique. The way I did this pattern on top was with stripped logs. I think it was jungle and spruce, because I thought it made like a fitting color scheme. Then I added some more vines and I continued the wall. I used a lot of stairs and slabs in the wall to make it look more weathered and ancient, because that was kind of the feeling I was getting from a fungal infected ocean monument. And now you see I've almost reached all the way around the monument with the wall. And at this point I was pretty fed up with just building a wall, so I must thank Professor Snape for carrying me all the way through to the end. Thank you. So then I started building a custom mushroom directly on top of the monument. I was trying to make it look like they were sort of growing out from the inside of the temple, or at least that their roots, or whatever mushrooms have, were sort of digging their way into the monument. And I don't know how successful I was at achieving this. Maybe it just looks like they're growing on the outside. But that's honestly fine as well. I think this is definitely still my favorite mushroom of the entire build, especially when I have added all the lights and the puzzle around the bottom. I also give the monument sort of a ruined look around the mushroom by adding some stair blocks and some slabs, although it's not that clear from this angle. But you'll see a lot of it a little bit later when I try to add some interesting detail to the monument. Then I draped some dirt and mycelium over the front of the monument and built a small red mushroom to balance out the big brown one we just built. I think this is also the first time I used the crimson vines as decoration, but as we progress further through the build, you'll see me start using a lot more of the new nether items, because honestly, they were just made to be part of a mushroom/fungi inspired biome. So now I had actually been testing some designs in another creative world, and I'd gotten quite a firm grip on how I wanted the mushrooms to look. You'll see I make the red ones a lot taller and pointier, with far more decorations on both them and around them. And I must say that custom mushrooms are so much better looking than the default ones. And really, they aren't even that difficult to build, and the materials you'd need to get in survival to build them aren't that hard to get either. And the brown ones are almost the default ones, just with the strip blocks, and I add some vines hanging from the cap top thingy to make them look a little bit nicer, but that's pretty much it. Anyways, I'm rambling. What you just saw was me changing the arches above the entrance to the monument to look a little bit nicer, and now you're seeing me add all the details that I just described to all the previous build mushrooms to at least have some consistency between how they all look. What you just saw me remove was the big circle I accidentally cloned off to the side in the beginning when I had to figure out how the clone command worked. Anyways, moving on. Next thing I did was adding some more details to the monument itself and creating this ruined look that I spoke of before. I created like a 2-color gradient using dark prismarine at the bottom, and made sure to add some uneven amount of detailing to ruin the monument sort of, because I didn't want it to look like an awkward wannabe random pattern, but rather to make sure it looked like some parts of the monument were actually more weathered and damaged than other parts. So, all that you've seen up until this point pretty much covers the entire workflow that I had from this point on, although there are still a few things I did which were, like, different. But the next few hours I just spent building more mushroom patches and adding some more room to the monument. I must say, I think my patches got a lot more sophisticated the further into building I got. Also, most of the build was created in 2 to 3 hour sessions, because either I had to go to school or work, or I was writing an assignment, so there were a lot of times where I sat down with fresh eyes looking at what I had built, and I had kind of forgotten where I was going with it. But overall, I think it just made the build that much more dynamic, and it also sort of kept me from getting tired of the build, because I constantly wanted to get back to my computer and build more. I also decided to let the custom vines grow out over the glass barrier into the ocean, and at first I thought I would still have the shroom lights in them, but that looked silly from the outside, so I changed it to lanterns. And did you know that lanterns can't be placed directly on leaves, but if you hang them in a chain on the leaves, it's perfectly fine? And I don't know, I guess that's just classic Minecraft logic. Not that I had any particular expectations for Minecraft to suddenly become logical while I was building house-sized mushrooms, so I just continued building my giant vines and my mushrooms, trying to distribute the patches in an aesthetic manner, which basically just meant I tried to place them somewhat evenly apart. And if you look in the background of where I'm building, you can see that there is already a fair amount of mushrooms filling up the space around the monument. And I didn't want the area to become too overgrown because I wanted it to still have the classic mushroom biome feel. One of the last things I did was reinvent the entrance for the monument. I'd already started this when I sort of remade the arches, but I thought because when all the water was gone, there was no longer a way to swim through the entrance, and suddenly it was just annoyingly high off the ground. So I made the stairway out of the different types of prismarine to fit in with the rest of the monument, and I actually think it turned out quite nice. Lastly, I lit up the underbelly of the monument and added in some details. Anyways, we're nearing the end now, and I turned the game to night and made sure most of the build was lit up properly, but I am pretty much 100% sure this is not spawn proof, but it doesn't really matter when you're playing on peaceful. Alright, let's just take a little fly around the build and see what I actually made. And also maybe, I don't know, add some mushroom cows to sort of fit the theme. Oh, you're so adorable. Anyway, so this is actually how it ended up looking, and we've got the entrance to the monument right here, and I also added some extra mushroom cows. So we got all the brown mushrooms and the red mushrooms over there, and honestly, I think it turned out pretty cool. As you can see, I added all the lanterns to light up the ocean monuments, decided to use the blue ones to match with the prismarine, and I also made sure to add some extra detail on the ground to have it not so empty. So yeah, this is what the ocean monument would have looked like if you had built it with a mushroom biome in mind, Wadzee. I'm just saying, I think it's pretty cool. I think it's not as boring and dull as it would have been if you just used the regular Minecraft mushroom biome. And let's just maybe view it at nighttime. So I also added all the shroom lights and I added all the lanterns, and I think it gives a really nice feel to the whole build. So anyways, that's all I got for you today, and I hope you enjoy your day. And if you like the video, consider leaving a like, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!